Welcome to your Daily 5 for Thursday, August 17th, 2023. If you follow either technology podcasts and or YouTube channels, or apparently video game podcasts and or YouTube channels, you have probably heard the names Gamers Nexus and Linus Tech Tips. These are two, now I've known these names for a long time, I've heard them. I have to admit, I don't watch or read much content from either one, not for any particular reason, but mostly because what it always felt like, well, in the Linus Tech Tips case, I watched a couple videos from that channel, and I just have to admit the overly produced technology shows the ones where it's these highly kind of overdone production displays, like Marquez Brownlee's another one who has these multi-million-dollar studios shooting on 8K. I'm just not interested in it. None of that stuff. When it gets to a certain level of production, I kind of glaze over, I have to admit. But that's just me. It's not a criticism of it. It's just saying it's obviously many other people love it. So I am not the indicator of the mainstream interpretation of how to make a YouTube video by any stretch of the imagination. But in any event, I was familiar with the names, but I really didn't follow them all that much. And apparently there has been a back and forth that's been ongoing for a while and has now boiled over, where Gamers Nexus was pointing out that there were a number of things that didn't seem right about how Linus Tech Tips was handling reviews and video production, not the production of the videos themselves, but the way they were cranking out reviews and judgments of things, testing, that type of stuff, all different things. You can read it in the article I'm going to link to. And finally, apparently it has gotten bad enough that now Linus Tech Tips is pausing the channel for a week or something like that. They put out this apology video, which I got about 5 minutes into and gave up on because, like I was saying, so overly produced, it doesn't feel like it's even a real thing. So I just stopped watching because it didn't register as anything worth continuing with. But honestly, whatever the actual merits of this aside, from what I understand, this was largely driven by the attempt by the Linus Tech Tips channel to become a bigger presence on YouTube, to make more money by becoming a bigger player. And the way they did that was by producing or overproducing way too many videos, cutting corners in the search for speed and more videos to be published, because that's how YouTube functions. And to that degree, I mean, don't get me wrong, there does seem to be some actual intentional disregard for the way things should be done. I'm not excusing anything by any stretch of the imagination, but this is what YouTube will produce. This is exactly why I don't like YouTube and the way that it handles things. Because, and don't get me wrong, there is no objective way to judge the quality of a video. Obviously, entertainment as a medium is a subjective thing. But it's very clear that the way YouTube is handling it is not good. It is counterproductive. It, in fact, gears people more towards producing things that simply grab attention by any means necessary, as opposed to sincere attempts to make something that is engaging and worth watching. And YouTube just has a cycle of that. We've seen it again and again. This is not the first channel that has had this kind of thing come out. And it's always the same background. Well, it's usually of two things. One is pure greed, which is everything. Yeah, the chase for money. But that is a result of bigger YouTube growth. When you get more YouTube presence, you get more money, from what I understand of how it works. And so YouTube is a byproduct of that greed. And so if your entire system is built and engineered to make people just keep cranking things out, and not even things that are necessarily, again, of any real quality, but that will get people to click on them and watch them for the minimum amount of time that qualifies for monetization, well, what do you think is going to happen when you have, I don't know how many thousands of videos a day, how many millions over the course of a year or whatever, and only so many, a small maybe 0.05%, 0.1% that are going to make any real money at it? What do you think is going to be the result? So yes, this is absolutely a failure of the company, Linus Tech Tips, the company, or whatever the parent company is called, but it's as much a result of what YouTube makes people do. This is how YouTube functions. It doesn't actually make a metric measurement of how good, depending on what your assessment is, it can be varied, but it doesn't really care how good your video is. All it cares about is how long somebody watched it and how many people watched it. Well, any system that bases the level of success on elements that are as completely intangible and nonsensical as that is going to inevitably create things like this. This will not be the last one, because it certainly wasn't the first one, and until YouTube changes, and there's no indication it ever will, this is what we're going to keep seeing. So this is just how it is, everybody. Get used to it. Later.